Hi, I'm Alex, and this is your chess manual from A to Z. If you are a beginner, you can learn all what you need to start the game and win your opponents. So let's start. So this is a chessboard, and it's now empty with no pieces on it. And you can see that there are some letters and numbers. So each square of chessboard has its address. It's, for example, D1. So you need to find the letter and the number. This is called ranks, and this is called files. This is called files. Also, in chessboard, you have diagonals. Like this one or this one is diagonals. Some straight ways for pieces to move. Chessboard consists of 64 squares, white and black. You have the center, these 4 squares. This is called like center of the board, and also there are some corners, A1, H8, and H1. And usually central points are better than some corner or edge, but no, it differs. Let's start from the king. King is the most important piece in chess, and it moves in adjacent square, forward or back, as well as right or left, and diagonally, only one square. Of course, on the board should be always 2 color kings, white and black, because they're most important and they can never be captured. So if black king is here, play here, and black one now cannot go here, or here, or here, because if he goes here, just imagine, then white king could take it, but it's not allowed. Next one is the queen. It's the most powerful piece on the board. Actually, it's moving like king, but not one square, but wherever you want. So, for example, it can go until the edge of the board, or just 2 steps, or 3, as well as diagonally. So it's a really powerful piece, and you need to always protect it. The next one is a rook, and rook moves only forward and up, up, down, right and left. So it's quite easy to remember. Like this, also wherever you want, any square amount. The next one is a bishop, and it moves only diagonally. Also any amount of squares you want, but you need to remember that if bishop stays on white color, so it can only move on white color squares. If on black, if it stayed here, then it can move only on black. So in start of the game, you have 2 bishops. One of them is considered to be white colored and another black colored. Next piece is knight, and it's very unordinary because moves not by straight lines, but 2 steps in one direction and then turns. So for example, in this case, you need to go here, here, and then, for example, here. So from here, you can go immediately here. This kind of move, not quite special, but with practice, you will understand. And another thing of knight is that it can jump over other pieces. So for example, here, knight can just go here, and this pawn is just stayed here. It's not a problem. And the last one is the smallest piece you have in your army, pawn, and pawn moves only one square forward, never can return. So in beginning of the game, it can move one time and 2 squares immediately. So you can choose one, either 2. But after you already moved this pawn here or here, next it can go only by 1. And when the pawn reaches the last rank, the edge of the board, it should be transformed in other piece. So you can choose queen, rook, knight, or bishop. Of course, best is to get queen, because queen is the most powerful, but you can never promote your pawn into king. overstay pawn. So you just need to take one of these 4 pieces. The next important rule of chess is that if some pieces are on your way, for example, in this case of queen's way, you cannot just jump over them, of course, except the knight. And in this particular case, you cannot go with queen here, here, and of course here, because here is your pawn. If we look on this diagonal, we can see that the queen's way, here is black knight, and of course we cannot go with our queen here or here, but in this way we can just take this knight, and it means capturing. So this is kind of things how pieces capture each other. If here will be rook or not queen, so of course with rook you cannot take this knight in one move. But you can go here, and if black do something, for example, go with knight here, so you can take the knight. Or, of course, if black goes here, then you, for example, go with pawn, so black can now take your rook. So now I set up some random position, and it's a very nice exercise that you can also try to do with me. You look at each piece on the board and think, what can it take? Right, this move. Start from the king on b1. So you can see that king moves only 1 square, and it can actually capture no one. It cannot capture his own pawn. Let's look on pawns. So a3 pawn. One moment, that pawns are capturing our pieces, not like we're going. You remember we're moving only forward by 1, but capturing diagonally 1 square diagonally. So this pawn actually cannot take here no one, with it also. But for example, this pawn can take this. So this pawn can take, and this pawn cannot take because it only can move here. Knight in this position can take the bishop, the queen, and also the rook. This rook cannot take anyone. You can check. All these lines are empty, and here's our queen, the same color, so you cannot take it. And this rook as well cannot take anyone. Now go to queen. Queen in this position can take the bishop and can take the pawn. And now we can flip the board, look from black side. So black king cannot take anyone. The pawn can take our pawn. This one cannot take anyone. This one also. Okay, this bishop can now take the rook. And that's it. This rook cannot take anyone. This bishop can take rook on g2. See? It's a very long move, but it's not a problem for chess. And the queen can take the pawn on b2, like this. So we found all possible captures in this position, and now let's go deeper. Each piece in chess has its value. So pawn is considered to cost 1 point, the knight costs 3 points, and bishop as well, 3 points. So knight and bishop are equal, even if they have different ways to move. And the rook costs 5 points, and the most expensive is the queen, 9 points. And what about king? So actually king has no price because it can never be captured, but it's almost same power as knight and bishop, but just for future. And second exercise is to find in the same position that we had before, moves that are good and moves that are not so good. So what do I mean? If we now will take with our queen this pawn, then will be black move, yeah? And black can just take our queen. Of course, now we can take it with the rook, but now you can count how many points we got and how we lost. So we got pawn and bishop, but we lost our queen. So pawn and bishop is 4 points, but queen is 9 points. And it means that our taking on h4 was not good because we lost our queen, we lost so many points. That's why this move is not good. Another option is to take the bishop, but in this case, king will take us. King can never be taken, but king can take. It means that this move was also not good for us. And now we can see if the pawn will take this pawn. It's actually a good move because we just win the pawn in this case. And if we take with knight the bishop, so rook can take it, but it will be exchange because knight and bishop are the same value. And this move was not bad, not good from material perspective. But here's the better move with knight is to take the rook. And it seems that black can also take our knight, but problem is that we won 5 points and lost only 3. So actually it's good for us. But the best move, of course, in this position, maybe you already recognized, is to take the queen. And now we just got queen, we got 9 points, and black cannot take any other piece. Of course, we can now take it with bishop our rook, but anyway, we won queen and lost on the rook, so we won 4 points. So this move was very nice. And actually, when you play the chess game, you need to always check every your move, how many points you can win and how many points you can lose. Okay, let's use the same position for another very important rule of chess. It's actually the main rule. It means what is check and what is checkmate. And check means when you attack the opponent's king. What means attack? Attack, it means that you want to take it in next move. For example, with your queen, you go here. And if black do some random move here, so you just take with the king. But you already know that king cannot be taken, so it means that black need to react on this check. And usually you have 3 ways to defend your king. So first one is to take the piece that is attacking king. In this position, you can just take king, but sometimes you can only also have some other piece and you can take another piece. Another option is to run away from the check. And just imagine if king would be here, not here, but here. So another third option is to block the check and put your piece between king and attacking piece. So usually you have different options what to use. For example, in this case, you can go here or take the queen. And just remember that you cannot go here, you cannot go here, and you cannot go here. All is because queen controls all these squares, and if you go with your king here, so white can just take queen the king, but it's not possible. That's why it means that you don't have this move. If it will be black's move, that they can go here and give a check to white king. So white king has also different options, can run away here or here or here, but of course not here because it will be still under attack. Another option that white can take is bishop with their queen or rook. Also, we can block the attacking line diagonal by rook, for example here, or also with this rook to move it here. So it means that will be no check. You see, rook is now staying. So always you need to find the best ways to protect your king, because it's just impossible if you play online. The computer even will not allow you to make illegal moves, and your king can be never be under check during your move. And in this position, black takes the pawn on b2 with queen, and now it's a check to white's king. And the question is where can it move? So b1 is not available because queen will take a2 as well, and king cannot capture queen because of bishop. You see, the bishop now is like defending the queen, and if king takes, so bishop can take the king, so it's not possible. Yeah, no, just look at this here and just take. So it's not possible. That's why let's return it back and look. Maybe white has another option to stop this check, to defend from it. So white king cannot capture the queen and any other piece as well. So this option white don't have, and king cannot escape as well, and also it cannot be blocked because in this particular case between king and queen there is no empty space. So it means that this check is also a checkmate, and black won this game, because if you checked the opponent and it has no defense from check, so it means a mate, and checkmate means you won the game. Congratulations. Okay, now let's look on some easier examples how to make a checkmate. In this position, white can move their rook here, and now the black king is checked, but the problem is that it cannot escape from this check because kings are never staying together, you remember, and this whole line is protected by a rook. So now it is checkmate on the board and white won. In this position, white can move their queen to a2 and also check the opponent's king. And even in this position, black king don't have any of the moves. You can see this move is not available because of the queen. This is not available of the queen. This is as well of the queen, and this too because of the king. So it's also checkmate, and white won. Here you can, of course, go to h5, but king will move to g8 and game will go on. And that's why I recommend you to go on g7, and now queen is protected by bishop and king cannot escape. So is it checkmate? And also, of course, let's look on this example. If white plays with their queen to f7 or g6, no, for example, to f7, so now is a black move, and black has no any move. Here it will be taken by queen, here as well, and here as well. And it means that this is stalemate. Stalemate is special situation in chess that there is no check on the board, but also one of the side doesn't have any moves. So in this case is draw, and draw it means that no one wins. So it's like a half of point. Each side got half a point. And let's go now to two special rules of the chess. And first one is that you can, during your turn, make two moves at once by your king and rook. It means that you move your king on two squares, and rook can jump over and stay near the king. So this is called castling. And it was castling in short side, and of course you can go to long side. Means that you go here, and as well like here. Black, of course, the same. You can do a long castling or short. It's very important that will be some empty space between king and rook. And also if you already moved your king, for example, you went here and back, so now you don't have any option to make castling, as well as if rook moved here or here, so also you cannot do a castling. And remember that castling is prohibited if your king is under check, or it should move in some place where it will be checked or under attack of some piece, like in this position. The bishop is attacking king, so now of course castling is prohibited. If you try to block and when black, for example, do castling, so now you also cannot do, because now this rook is controlling this square and king cannot jump here. And the last rule you need to remember is en passant rule. When white goes with pawn to two squares, black can take it like here, like this, and it means en passant. So it's quite easy to recognize, because it can only be done when one of the pawn went on two squares at once, not on one, but on two. And another pawn, opposite color pawn, stayed just near it. And not this pawn should take this, but this one, just remember. And it can only take during the same move. It cannot go with rook when king will go here, and cannot take now. So only the same move where white moved their pawn to two squares. So one more time, white plays g4 and black just takes it, and this is the move. In start of the game, of course, you have material equality, because white and black army the same amount of pieces. It's fully symmetrical, but after some moves, if you play well, you can get the material advantage. It means that you just have more points now than opposite side. Just look at simple position, and now made only 6 moves. So white has, of course, king, and black also has a king. So kings always on the board, never counts. White has 2 rooks, and black also has 2 rooks. White has 1 knight, and black has also 1 knight. White has 1 bishop, but black has 2 bishops. But we have a queen, and black doesn't have any queen. So it means that we have a little bit more. Now also let's count the pawns. 4, 5, 6, 7, and black has 8. So actually black has 1 more pawn with us, but we have a queen, and actually we have 5 points more. Because, why 5? Because queen is 9 points, and bishop and pawn is 4 points, so 9 minus 4 will be 5. So now we have material advantage, and each position that you have, you can just calculate and say who has more points, that side has more material advantage. Of course, it's very nice, and it helps you to win faster. But if you play not accurate, so opponent can also capture a lot of your pieces. And if we look on this position, it seems black has a little bit more. Of course, from these things we learned before, you need to remember what is helping you to win. For example, kicking opponent's pieces, like in this position, they just give us their queen, so why not to take? And of course, not to lose our pieces, because in this position, if we go with queen to h5, so black will, of course, take it also as well. So, of course, we go in our side and c4. And if, for example, black plays like his, and we just can checkmate. So now I recommend you to return to starting position and go to strategy, to openings, and so on. So let's make some moves. It's Ruy Lopez, or Spanish opening, one of the most famous beginning in chess. and black in third move attacking our bishop, and we need to do something, because if we simple move castling, we will just take our bishop, so we just lost 3 points, and it means that we need to react. We can do some simple move, and we can take the knight, and that will be change of pieces, because bishop and knight, as you know, already costs the same amount of points, 3. So this is one option, and another option is to go away, for example, a4. Now black can continue attack our bishop, and we, of course, move to safe square b3. If black tries to win our bishop, of course, we need to run away with it and in some safety place. If we didn't see the threat, go, for example, with rook to e1. So just get a c4, and our bishop now is trapped, and we need to give it for a pawn. So we are down bishop, and position is almost lost. In the beginning of the game, there are 3 recommendations that you can follow and get good position. First is to develop your pieces. Second is to control center. You remember these squares are central squares. And also make your king safe. So if black moves just here and back, we can develop our pieces in the best position, and by this get very nice advantage called positional advantage. And positional advantage is actually the key of evaluation of each position, even if there is equal amount of pieces with opponent. So even in this way, your position is better, because you, for example, control the center, more pieces are developed, and opponent's pieces stuck somewhere. So when your position is better and you have easier way to play, and easier to checkmate the opponent's king. And positional advantage is very important, because it can be easily transformed in a material advantage. For example, in this position, what we can play, knight to b5. Now we can take the pawn on c7, and the black should give their queen for knight. So of course we try to hold this pawn, but anyway we can sacrifice our bishop, and knight takes, and now we go with our queen to f4 and double attack. We want to take on c7, and also to take on f7 and checkmate. So of course black tries to cover all these weaknesses, and to just take this and make check. So black just need to give up their queen, because they don't have any other move. If as you remember from check, you cannot go here because queen will take. So we get material advantage. We actually won the queen, and still our position is much better, and it's a very easy way to win. There are usually 2 main scenarios. If the opponents are equal level, they can play very solid by center, trying to control it and make some little advantage. And another option, especially if black plays Sicilian defense, one of the most sharpest in chess, you can get super complicated game where you need to know each move, because if you do one in the side, you will lose immediately. And it's kind of variation, so you can see the differences with both players castle waking in different side, and it means that black are trying attack to white king in queen side and white on king side, and it's just a race. So who will be faster usually wins. Sometimes you can even sacrifice your piece in the opening for position advantage, of course. And this is 2 knight defense. So there are some sharp variation where white is giving up their knight, but have very nice initiative. So this position is really nice because Black King stuck in the center. He closes their bishop, and also White has a line, D line, controls the center, more pieces developed. So it's quite nice to play, even if we have one knight less. So next, after the opening, comes the middle game, and it's the most complicated stage in chess, especially for beginners, because there are some maneuvers, some tactics. It means that you know to count more in forward and know what your opponent wants and try not let him to do this. Sometimes it's race, sometimes someone is faster, sometimes there are big exchange between pieces, and all these things you should count, and it's really not easy for beginners. That's why we're losing to advanced players, because we don't just have such a big practice and can't find the best moves. Of course, there are so many points in middle game because it's actually about 80 or 90% of all game. But some recommendations I can give you and you can follow and play better and win. First one is to look after your king very carefully, because opponent usually tries to checkmate it and just cover it with your pawns, and other pieces covers the most weakest squares, usually near the king and some open lines. So the best is to defend your king in this stage. And also look after your queen, because if you lose your queen, it will be very hard to win, because queen is a commander of your army and the most powerful piece. So third thing I can recommend is to use tactics, try to win some material, and we will speak about it later, but it's very nice, some traps and some forks, different stuff, and you can use it. And last thing I can recommend you, if you play with strongest opponent, to exchange more pieces, because in endgame your chances will be more equal if on the board are left only rooks, kings, and pawns. So sometimes you can make a draw with very strong opponent, and it will be a very nice result. So before we watch different strategies, what are of course valid during all the game, but in chess there is also some special thing like tactic, and tactics can be used in 2 or 3 moves. So there are very fast way to win some material, to checkmate opponent's king, and using different traps, different tricks, and so on. And so let's discover just some of them. It seems that white are okay, and there is material equality, but queen goes to a5, and suddenly it attacks a4 bishop and e1 rook. And it seems that white cannot save their 2 pieces in one time, and so we just win one of them. In this position, we check if queen to g5, and now if king moves to h1 or f1, we will checkmate it on g2 square. So for whites, only one move is to cover our attack, and now the knight goes to e2, and it is a fork, classical fork when king and queen are under attack of knight. So it's very nice that we can get so many points. It's very nice position for being understanding. So first we just exchange bishops, and second move is very nice, very extraordinary, I could say, because we take the pawn, and it seems that just we giving up our queen, but problem is that this rook pinning the pawn, so it can't move inside, because otherwise king, black king, would be checked. It means that pawn has no moves on side and only can go forward. if I go here to protect their knight, so we just can take one more time. And it seems that also we're giving our rook the problem, but now this pawn can't move because of the bishop, and black only can block our attack, and we just take this, and it's a checkmate. So there are pins from different sides. So this idea is very typical, and you can remember it and use in your games. Sacrificing your pieces is a very dangerous weapon that you can also use, but be very careful. Count all variations until the end, because if you lose your pieces, so you can very fast lose your game. In this position, you can go with rook to g8, and it seems we're just giving away this piece. Of course, black taking, thank you, but we have some nice check to g5. If king now moves to h7 or h8, the same, the mate will be from this side, but of course he wants to go in our side, and now we make exchange with our rooks, and queen mates to d8. So when white played rook g8, they already calculated all moves forward, and it means that this sacrifice was correct. Sometimes chess players misunderstand something or didn't see, and their sacrifice is not correct. So of course you can try to do it, but be very careful, as I said, and calculate all variations until the end. And of course you can try to, with sacrifices of your pawns or knights, and then try to sacrifice some game rook or even queen. It seems like white has very nice position, material advantage, active queen position, and just we need to develop our knight, make castling, and we'll be alright. But black has a very nice idea. First we move is with queen to c6. Of course, now white don't want to give their rook, that's why they make castling. But now black has rook a8 move, and queen is trapped. He doesn't have any moves, and just the best way is just to sacrifice it for rook. But of course now black are much better. And the last idea today, but not last at all in chess, is discovered attack. So usually there are some pieces on one line, like here on one diagonal you can see the bishop, the knight, and the queen. And if knight now goes somewhere, it will not attack actually the queen, but the bishop will attack. So with knight we need to go somewhere where it will, the best way, it will give some check. For example here. And now white takes this knight, and we just take a queen. And a mistake would be to go with knight here. It seems it's the same, but a queen is taking a knight, and now queen is getting out from the attack. So I just show you 5 different types of tactics. Of course, there are a lot of more, but probably they are most common in chess game. And if you use it, if you know it, you'll get better results. And there is a good practice to solve every day, maybe 10 puzzles, kind of this, according to your level. And in this way you will grow as chess player, because you will see more than your opponent, and maybe you even can use some of his tactics in your games and win more easy way. Okay, so you play with your friend or with your opponent, and you made a lot of moves, and now it's coming to the endgame. So endgame means that 2 or 3 pieces, or maybe even 1, left on the board, except the king and pawns, because they are always on the board. And there are really rare situation that there are no pawns. In the endgame, there are 2 main rules. First one is to activate your king, because Of course, in beginning, king wants to hide under their pawns or pieces. But in the endgame, opposite, it goes and attacks and captures opponent's pieces and pawns. So king should be activated, of course. And another thing is that you need to try to promote your pawn. What now we play, a pawn maybe will be promoted, I guess. And of course, as in all our stages of the game, you need to check what your opponent wants and try not to let him to do this. So in our case, we try not to let the black king into our camp and that he cannot take our pawns, because now you see that king cannot go here, because we have some barrier with our king and pawn. So it's also quite nice plan. And idea is to get this promoted pawn, promote it, and finally probably checkmate with queen and king. It's quite easy. I will show you detailed in our lessons, but now just you can see that this is a checkmate, and actually white won this game. Hope that this video helped you and answered your questions about chess, about rules, about how to play with understanding very consciously, to have your own strategy, to know what your opponent wants. One more practical advice from my side is, if you try to play online or with your friends, then never start with short time control, 3 or 5 minutes. So I recommend you to put at least 10 or 15 minutes for each player with increment, and because it will help you to play very consciously and use all this knowledge to play very systematically with full understanding what you're doing, what your opponent wants, and step by step you can grow as a chess player and get more victorious. And if you liked this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Here will be more exercises, more puzzles, more tips for raising your chess level, and I hope we will meet again. Bye bye.